Welcome everyone to a demo about setting up cohort-based courses. My name is William Cronier, and I'm joined by Tara, who is Eduflow's community manager and customer success manager. Well, Tara, I probably botched that title a little bit.
No, that's perfect.
And it's also awesome to see Cassie here, who's also helping us on the marketing side. I see a lot of familiar names in the session, which is really, really cool. It's nice to see. I feel like you're friends by now, because it's been so long, or there's been such a long journey together. So I really appreciate that. Let me do a few check-in questions. Maybe we can start with in the chat, if you're willing to share, maybe type why you're here. And why you're here, the reason I'm asking that is because I found that people are often trying to solve very specific problems. I know Cassie is here to solve a very specific problem, and that really helps me to maybe relate examples to what you're trying to address, or just to make it a bit more personalized, this presentation. Oh, nice. Okay, cool. Cassie, November, that's just around the corner. Cool. Well, I see a lot of people already running CBCs. Cool. Okay. So if you'd like to start sharing maybe your experiences, or why you're here in the chat, that'll be really awesome. And then another thing we can do is to practice using reactions, because I will, throughout the presentation, just ask you to check in with me, so that I know that you're there and that I'm not rambling on and I'm talking about completely unnecessary stuff, or I've gone off topic. So if you look at the bottom of the screen, there's a button that says reactions. And if you click, and then you can just find any reaction that you think is or that you'd like to share. I'll share a thumbs up, for example. These reactions just help me I'll ask you, give me a thumbs up if you understand, or if you're following. Or you can also, in the reactions, there's a little rewind button that tells me to slow down a little bit if I'm rambling on, or if I didn't really explain a context, or if I didn't add enough context. So you can just give me some feedback throughout the session as I'm presenting, because this is going to be very one way, but I'd like to include you as much as I can throughout. Let's practice quickly. If you have used Eduflow as an instructor before, give me a thumbs up. Have you used Eduflow as an instructor? 2. Wow. Okay, this is very interesting. Not many people. Okay, 3. Okay, Tara and Cassie are kind of exceptions. This is very cool. Okay, so very few people have used Eduflow before. That's very good for me to know. The second reaction that you can give me is, let's give it a heart emoji if you have been in an Eduflow Academy course, if you've been in a course as a student. Okay, I'm getting a lot more love this time. Great. Okay. So at least Eduflow isn't completely unfamiliar to everyone in the course or in this session. Great. Okay. So for those of you who haven't experienced Eduflow at all, Eduflow is a learning management system, and Eduflow is specifically geared toward creating or facilitating social experiences. We think that there's a lot of value in creating connections between the different participants in your course, and we've got a bunch of really cool tools and integrations that help you to maximize those relationships. And if you think about learners as resources in your course, you can really find cool ways to tap into those resources. But we'll get into that as we go through this little demo session. So some of you might also be here to learn more about this thing that everyone keeps talking about in terms of a CBC. Who can tell me what a CBC is? You can type it into the chat. I feel like this might be like a preaching to the choir type of question, but what is a CBC? everyone's talking about CBCs. On Twitter, everyone's saying CBC, sharing really cool ideas that they've got. But would anyone like to tell me what the abbreviation? There we go. Okay. I feel like I hope that wasn't a condescending question. Cool. Thank you everyone for sharing. Great. I know we're all on track. So a cohort-based course is basically just a course where you put a bunch of people at the start of the learning journey together, and you progress them through the learning journey at the same time generally. So it could be week by week, or it could be month by month, or bi-weekly. That is up to you. But the general idea is that people are moving through the course at the same time. And if you think about it, cohort-based courses, since you were a child, you've always been part of a cohort-based course. Back when we were in preschool or in creche, you were in a cohort-based course with all the other toddlers, and then you would graduate and then join primary school. And from primary school, you'd go into high school. But every single time, that was a cohort-based learning experience, because you're learning in a classroom with other people, and you get to interact with them. You get to ask questions. You get to learn from the way that they ask questions, for the instructor, or maybe they'll teach you something. You can nudge them on the shoulder and say, I'm really struggling. Can you help me with this problem? I don't want to bother the teacher, or I don't feel safe enough to ask the teacher. There are a lot of benefits of this idea of learning together. But then at some point, I don't know why this happens, but we leave university, and then we join the workforce, and then this idea of learning in a cohort or learning in a community kind of disappears. We are all of a sudden thrown into this world, and we, as adult learners, have to create our own learning journeys. And at some point, or to some extent, we start craving that sense of community. And I think that is maybe why that and, this massive thing called COVID happened and remote work happened. But these are some of the reasons why I think cohort-based courses have become so popular recently. It's because it's a way to leverage new technologies to really, really get this idea of working in a community to work. And we can kind of leverage that social energy that we were used to as children and bring it back into our lives as adults. If anyone else would like to share in the chat, maybe your personal experience of a cohort-based course. I'm assuming we've got a lot of instructional design principles or designing social learning experiences course graduates in here. If you'd like to share a reflection of your experience on the course, maybe you could tell us about what the cohort-based course meant to you versus a self-paced course, which is a course you just do by yourself. Why did you do this instead of why did you do a CBC instead of the self-paced course? I wrote some things down, so I'll be looking to the side a little bit. I think the reasons why they've become so popular is firstly because of the structures. To some extent, we'd like to get some guide rails or some guardrails, or someone to push us in the right direction a little bit. And then accountability is a really big thing. We want someone to check in on us. Our peers can keep us accountable, or an instructor can keep us accountable. These are all things that are adding some more energy. And then finally, it's the idea of community. The people in the cohort is the special ingredient. And as creators of cohort-based courses, we try to find ways to add that special ingredient to the learning journey as much as possible. And that's going to be the focus. I think Tara is going to share a link to a Wes Cowell article about what cohort-based courses are. This is, I feel like, one of the seminal articles about this, with this resurgence of cohort-based courses. It's definitely worth a read if you're interested in some of the more background information. I'll maybe start with a bit of a story about Eduflow Academy. So in October or in July 2021, I joined Eduflow. And Eduflow had just started Eduflow Academy, but Eduflow Academy wasn't really taking off. We weren't really getting a lot of participants to join the courses. We had a bunch of really cool courses, and a lot of them were self-paced and free, but there was just no one interested in them. And we'd promote it on LinkedIn and promote it on all these platforms and send out newsletters, but we just really struggled to get people to sign up for them. And then at some point, David, who's the CEO of Eduflow, and I were having a chat, and I proposed this idea of doing a cohort-based course. So what if we, instead of doing a self-paced course, put everyone together in a community and make them move through the course together? And the moment we started marketing that idea, it got this massive surge of popularity. I think our first cohort got 300 applications, which was completely mind-blowing for us. I think partly it's because it was in the space of instructional design, and instructional designers to some extent are maybe very lonely people, because you can have one instructional designer in the entire organization, and there's no one to really share your experience with. So I think that's maybe one of the reasons why this took off quite a lot. And throughout the almost 10 cohorts now that we've run, we've learned a lot about putting them together. So since then, I've written down some things. So we get about 400 to we get like 900 to 1,200 applications per instructional design principles cohort, and then we tend to accept maybe 400 to 800 of them. And then the facilitation team is largely Tara, Cassie, Heidi, Luke. So it's a very small facilitation team. So we have to be very careful about how we set it up so that Tara and I and the rest of the facilitation team can be mindful about our time and still, have normal lives where we don't have to, grade papers or grade assignments and stuff. So we'll cover some of the tactics that we've used. I'll at some point I'll try to read some of the comments. Tara, if there's anything you think I should really answer, you can just let me know. Cool. So let me quickly go over how this workshop will run, and then we'll get started. So we'll talk about 4 things, hopefully, depending on time. The first thing is we have literally half an hour ago launched a new template for creating cohort-based courses. So I will be using this workshop to show you how to use that template to run your own workshop. But then we'll also, through that experience, show you some of the principles and ideas that we've incorporated into the design, and stuff like that. So we'll talk about the getting started template. Then we'll talk about an orientation module. We'll go into building your course. So how do you use the Eduflow's features to build your course? And then how can we use scoring activities and Eduflow's certificate activity to kind of automate the evaluation or the certification process. Okay, so can I get a thumbs up from everyone before I continue? You can give me a thumbs up. I see some people have done it on screen, which is really cool. Thanks, Enric. Nice, awesome. Okay, so let me share my screen quickly. I just have to make sure I don't have I have the right tab open. Here we go. 1 second. Okay. Okay. They're sharing my screen. And I'm signing into Eduflow Academy. And you'll see here's the Eduflow course template already, but I'll show you how I got that. So if you go to app.eduflow.com, you will be able to sign into Eduflow. I think Tara will probably type that into the chat at some point. Oh, great. You've already done all of that. Awesome. So the first thing we can do is just copy the Eduflow Academy or Eduflow cohort-based course template. So to do that, we will go to this button here that says create a course, and we'll say get started with a template. And then you'll be redirected to our template library with a bunch of cool activities. So if it's worth exploring if you haven't looked at it yet. But we're looking for the category general, and in general, there's this activity called cohort-based course template. And I will just hit this button that says use this template and put it in Eduflow Academy, which is, so these are all my institutions. I've got a ridiculous amount of them, but I want them to appear in Eduflow Academy. And we'll just give it a second. Okay, so now I've created or copied the template into my own institution, and you'll see a welcome screen or about this template screen with a bunch of instructions on how to use this template. You'll also notice that there's a little I with a cross through it, and that means that the template isn't visible to learners, or that means this component isn't visible to learners. So every time you see an I that's got a cross through it, you know that it's invisible to learners. It's only visible to the course creator and the instructors, or the administrators of the course. So now that we've created a template, I'm actually going to create a fake learner. And the fake learner is going to help me to, let's say, empathize with my audience. It's going to help me to get an idea of what that journey is going to be like for a learner. So I'm actually, to create a fake learner, I'm just going to invite a learner I'm just going to call that person James, and that person's email address is, it can be a completely made up email address because that person won't really be added to the course. And I will say, do not send invitations. And now I've just created a fake learner. So here's my fake learner, and James is added. And then I'm going to, I'll show you what it looks like if I log in as. So we call this impersonation. So I can go in and pretend to be any learner as a course creator or course owner on Eduflow, and I can pretend to be them. So I'm going to log in as James. And here I can see what James sees in the course. So James can see the course overview and FAQs, but James can't see those components that I've hidden. James can't see the getting started or about this course and the templates and stuff. So this is a good way as we go through the building of the course to see what the journey looks like for James. So I'm going to stop impersonation and go back to my role as a course creator. And here I'm back in course. And let me just go back to my list to see where I need to go. Okay. So maybe just to give you a quick overview, the way that we do the mechanic of the cohort-based course, the idea of releasing material that people can see at a certain time, is we just unhide each flow. So each of these things that I'm closing right now is a flow. It's a flow is kind of like a folder that contains a bunch of activities. And let's say that once all the learners have been invited into the course, and we want them to start with the week 1 material. And for this template, I've just made up a random cybersecurity course. I've butchered an existing cybersecurity course that we've got, and I just copied a bunch of activities just for this example. So module 1 is all of the fishing rods with fishes on it. So if I want James to be able to see module 1, I'll just hit these little 3 dots over here, go to settings, and uncheck that hide flow from learners. And then if we go back to James and pretend to be James again, I can log in as James, and James will be able to see this component that I've just revealed to James. Okay, so that's the basic idea of how we get the show and hide the different modules as we progress through the course. There are other ways to do it and to automate it, but to keep it simple, I'm just going to recommend this approach for now. Can I get a thumbs up just to check in to make sure that everyone is following? Is there, you're also welcome to, in the chat, let me know if I need to go over something again, or I am trying to keep an eye on. Someone with the name iPhone is that Notion using? No, it's actually not. It is Eduflow's unique or not unique, but Eduflow's content editing tool. It looks very similar to Notion, and it's actually what makes it so easy as a course creator to edit the content. When we update this, I don't have to type and then hit a button that says update. It actually saves automatically as I type. And what I see is the same thing that the learner sees. So that makes it the experience of creating a course so easy. And I know I'm saying this as a person who works at Eduflow, but I have worked with a bunch of other platforms, and just removing that barrier of click to update is such a relief. So yeah, okay. The next thing I want to talk about is the welcome module. So since this is a course where Tara and I are going to share some of the things we've learned from a lot of trial and error, yes, you can create a quiz. And Steve, we'll get to all those questions in a second, hopefully. What we learned is that there has to be a form of onboarding when you invite participants to a cohort-based course. Remember that they're coming from all around the world with sometimes, I mean, we've got sometimes 70 plus countries represented in a cohort at Eduflow Academy, which means we've got different time zones to deal with. We've got different backgrounds, we've got different levels of experience. And in a very simple journey, we try to get everyone on a similar page, just to get them oriented to the course and the mechanics of how things work and some of the rules of how to be a good participant, I guess. And this getting started module is a consolidation of some of the things we've learned. So here we have just the course overview and frequently asked questions section. So we have a little introduction, and then I found it's really easy to add a video just to introduce yourself. And the way we do it, which is super easy, is you just paste a YouTube video. So you can create an introduction video, upload it to YouTube, and then paste that YouTube link into Eduflow, into the authoring tool, or this authoring text editor, and it'll automatically turn into a video. So here's a little GIF that shows how that's done. And I've created this thing using Eduflow's accordion tool, which is this cool thing over here. So yeah, this is the first page that we've got. It's just a nice little orientation, and it shows people, you know, this is the facilitator, or these are facilitators, this is what the course is about, this is how you'll learn in the course, and all of these things that are highlighted greens is stuff that you can edit and make your own. Then we include the course outline section, and you'll see that here we've got the icons that represent the module. So people know that the welcome module is the wavy hand, and they know that week 1 is the fishing rod. And that helps to also keep people in track with the different modules. So you can update this section. Then this is a really important section where we talk about the certificate requirements. And it also is very nice here to talk about your instructional approach, because every cohort-based course is run differently. So our Eduflow Academy case courses, for example, we don't use grades. We try to really embrace the philosophy that everyone, you know, you try to get out of the course what you want to get out of the course. But if you do want to do grades, you can do grades, and we'll get to that a bit later. So here we also importantly have a bit about the completion requirements, so everyone knows what the completion requirements are. And then we have a section about meet the facilitators, and this is a really nice way for all of the participants to really get to know people who are in the course. So they can watch a little introduction from Tara and from David and from whoever else is on the facilitation team. Maybe you would like to include some social media links and stuff like that. I've also included another option. So let's say you're working at an organization and you've got an organizational chart. You could maybe even embed this is the org activity. So you can create the org organizational chart, and then even embed that organizational chart into your learning journey. So maybe there's a head facilitator at the top, and then there's a bunch of course assistants, and you would like to show that hierarchy or that those relationships that they have to one another, just so that everyone has an idea. The next one is a self-reflection or goal setting activities. So we've also found that this is quite useful, so that people can firstly reflect on why they're here, and then they can set some goals. The principles course even has a peer coaching thing baked into this, but just to keep it simple, we've stuck with this. So we use the GROW model, and we just give some guidance and instructions about how you can reflect. And then, so this is a submission activity. And the cool thing is, so they submit this activity, and then at the end of the course, before they get their certificate, we've created this activity, which is actually a self-reflection activity. So it guided by a rubric, you will, as a participant, so if you're James, you will actually grade yourself based on the goals that you've set. And that's a really nice way to close that loop. Next up, we've got a plagiarism and community guideline section. So this is another really important thing that we've only recently realized that we need to include in the orientation module or the welcome module. So here you can also include your own community guidelines and plagiarism policy if you've got, if you take that very seriously. So here I've just suggested including a link, but the mechanic that we built in here is that James as a learner won't be able to continue on the learning journey unless he's ticked these two boxes. So I'll show you what that looks like from James's perspective. So I'm going to log in as James again, and I'm going to go to the plagiarism. So I'm James, and I've just read all of these things, and I can confirm that I've read the community guidelines and that I've read the plagiarism policy. And you'll see that the next activities all unlock. If I didn't check these, they'll actually lock again. So you can only continue if you have done this. This is a really, really useful activity if you have step-by-step things that people need to do. So Tara and I use this in one of the courses where we want people to join a Slack community, for example. And joining the Slack community is a very, very sequential process. So you need to do step 1, then step 2, then step 3. And if you miss any of those steps, the process won't work really well. And then Tara and I will get 50 emails from someone or from different participants saying, we can't do this, something's wrong, what am I doing wrong? So this tool has been incredibly useful. If it's a step-by-step thing, you can use this tool to really make it easier for yourself. The next activity is questions about the course activity. It's just the standard discussion activity where we can just where James as a participant can create a topic and ask questions. All of these instructions are things that you can customize as well. And next up is the course events. And this will showcase another one of the integrations that we've got. So Tara and I have played around with 2 different tools that allow participants to download a calendar into their own calendar. So you'll remember that we mentioned that we've got 70 plus different countries represented sometimes. So communicating time zones is the biggest pain ever. Because if you're like me from South Africa, growing up, you never really had to worry about changing time zones and stuff. We didn't do daylight savings. And then all of a sudden you join this online course and then talk about everything being in Pacific daylight time, which is a very, very strange concept. And then you have got to click on this button over here so that you can convert this 8 a.m. Pacific daylight time to my time in South Africa. And it's very, very frustrating. So what we found is you can embed a calendar tool into Eduflow, and then you as a learner can just click on that calendar tool and actually add it to your own calendar. So I'll click on subscribe, for example, and it'll on add event, and it will automatically add all of those dates and times and Zoom links to my own calendar. And the way we do it as well is we use add event, because once someone subscribed to the calendar, Add Event will then send them notifications based on all the events we've added into Add Event. So on week 1, everyone will get a calendar notification over here that says the week 1 material has gone live. And in week 2, they'll get another notification to say week 2 has gone live. On Tuesday, the 18th of October, they'll get a notification to say that this workshop will start in an hour. Here's the Zoom link. And all of the deadline notifications will also automatically be pushed to the learner. Then you as a facilitator don't have to constantly send emails and respond to people asking when things are going to happen. It's all in this welcome module, in this orientation module. And we've given you 2 options. So you can use Add Event, which we highly recommend. I think the free version allows you to create 1 calendar, and you can, I think, add 100. Good to hear, Rita. I grew up in Pretoria, actually. We recommend Add Event because Add Event is very seamless. It removes a lot of obstacles that we've experienced. You can also use Google Calendar. And we've got screenshots here to show just what the 2 versions look like. I personally think Add Event looks way prettier, and the user experience is way better. But you can also use Google. Cool. This link over here, you'll have to customize, for example, just so that, so this is the link that they can click on to add all the events to their calendar. And then after this activity, we have submission deadlines activity, just so that everyone can also, in case they don't want to use the calendar, they can write everything down and do all the conversions themselves. But these are all in the embedded calendar anyway. Next up is a poll. Remember that you've got, let's say, 700 people in a cohort, and you want them to start getting to know each other. And this poll activity is a really nice way for people to share their backgrounds and their context. So we'll have, so here as James can share that James works in corporate, and I'll confirm. And then James can see how his submission compares to everyone else. So if he's clicked on corporate and is 100% because he's the only participant, but we will see a nice distribution over time. If there's a few hundred people who've been clicking on it, it gets very cool. The next activity, this has also been a very, very fun one for us. We use Padlet, and I've recently just started using Mural in another course. Padlet is another embedded activity. And if you'd like to use it, you can actually watch a little video that I've created on how to use Padlet, or how to embed a Padlet world map into Eduflow. But it's really cool because as James can just click here and say, I'll say Minnesota and say James. And then once James has added that, you'll see that James and William are, it shows just how diverse the cohort is, which is really cool. And then James has reached the end of the welcome module, so James doesn't know what's going to happen. So we've just included this activity so that James knows that something is coming up, next steps. And then that's the welcome modules. And we've kind of done a nice little walkthrough of that experience. Can I get a thumbs up, or do you have any questions? I see Cassie, Padlet actually also has a free version. I've tried to include all the things in here. I've tried to include are free. Add Event is also free. So the barriers here are kind of like low. Padlet has a limit to how many Padlets you can create for free, and then you have to buy a plan, and the plan is super cheap to create unlimited Padlets. I think I pay like $3, $4 per month for unlimited Padlets. So it's very, very cool. The Padlet is also a really nice general wiki tool. So this is just one way of using Padlet. But you can use Padlets to create any type of wiki exercise. So people can create add links and documents and questions and suggestions. It's a very, very cool way to tap into the collective knowledge of your cohort. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to stop being James for a second, and I'm going to put on my course owner hat again to move on to the next section. And here we have, what did I write down as the next section? Building a course. So now that we've kind of, let's say, customized our welcome module, we actually need to create our learning journey. So what are people going to learn? Sorry. And I think this is just a way for me to show you the different ways that you can create activities in Eduflow. So, sorry, got a bit of a cough here. So to add any activity into Eduflow, we just click on this big button here that says add new. And then you have a huge range of different things that you can add. You can add just a normal content activity, a quiz, discussion activity. I'm not going to talk about tag selection, but it's really cool. Even SCORM. Eduflow, I think, is one of the only learning management systems that has the ability to upload a SCORM file on the free plan. Yeah, so that's pretty cool in case if you like creating a portfolio and you want to show off the cool stuff you've done in Genially or Storyline. The next activity is a submission activity. Then you've got a poll activity, embed. So embed is pretty much all of these activities, but you can embed pretty much any embed code that you find online. So if your favorite tool has an embed code, you can just use this embed code or embed activity to create a custom activity. If you use a specific embed code very frequently and you think we should know about it, please let us know. We'd really like to create add it to our integrations and embeds over here. The scoring activity we'll talk about later. The checklist activity is one I mentioned earlier, and then group formation, self-review. Yeah, these are all other really cool activities. But the other cool thing that happens is how you can string these activities together to create unique flows, which is why it's called Eduflow. So you can create a submission activity and then create a peer review flow. So reviews, people can, Canva, yes, there's Canva. So you can create a submission activity and then peer review, self-review, and feedback reflection. And if I click on this button, it actually creates an entire learning feedback mechanic, for example. So here a learner or James will submit work. And then once James has submitted work, James will review work by other learners. And once James has done that, James will review his own work. And then only once he's completed these two activities will he be able to see the feedback he's received. Yes, you can do Storyline if you export it as a SCORM file. So we have a SCORM activity that you can import. Cool. Okay, so this is just one example of how you can quickly create, 4 activities with the click of a button. I'll delete that. And so again, I'll just go over this. We call this folder thing a flow because it's a flow. It's a bunch of activities, and then we call one of these things inside a flow an activity. Then I've gone over how we can find different activities and integrations. The other thing that I've also created in this template is so you'll see here at the top, I've got a hidden component. And as a course creator, often you have, let's say, a team of 2 or 3 people who have to create something, and each person might have their own style or their own way of creating different components, and sometimes that can get really overwhelming. So what I recommend you do is you create a little hidden flow at the top with all of your content templates. So I have an activity template here, and this is the style guide of what a content activity will look like. So if I want to create a content component, I'll just create a duplicate of this and then drag that into my learning journey. Let's say in an overview of week 1. So now I will have a consistent looking components or activities all the way throughout my learning journey. And then another thing that we did, which I'm very excited to share, is I've created this thing called style guide, but it can be, let's just say like component library, I guess. So if you, as a course creator, if you're like the main person in charge and you want to keep the styles consistent, you can use this document so that everyone can copy and paste things from here to keep this, to maintain the style. So maybe you'll keep this link open on one tab and then just drag and modify them as you go. So here's for example, this is the standard for doing pull quotes in a course. This is the standard look and feel for when we're doing an accordion activity or an explore further activity. This is the standard way that we're going to format. Oh, this is actually really cool. So in the learning journey, I'll actually show you what it looks like from James's perspective, just for fun. Let's put this in, I'll just put it in here for now. So in the learning journey, sometimes we might want to do a click to reveal type of, it's not a quiz because we can't track it, but it's a nice way for someone to test themselves. So we can ask a question here and then we can reveal the answer once they clicked the button. So as James, I'll show you over here. So James can go to that component and James will have a thought-provoking question over here. And then the question will say, take a moment to think about what the correct answer is. And then James can test himself before clicking this answer to see what the answer is. So that's a nice way to, it's an interactive pause and reflect, which is a nice way to combine a bunch of different features in Eduflow's text editor tool. Let me go back to this section. I've talked about, so you can explore this activity or the style guide activity to see a bunch of cool ways that we've combined the different formatting features. So if you'd like to do a full width video, here's how I show how you can do a video with a caption that's centered and a video transcript that's added as a PDF. And I think at some point in the learning journey, I even show you how to add just documents and stuff, and you can even align them left and align them right and stuff like that. Next up, we've talked about building your course a little bit. The other thing that I want to talk about is what if you've already built your entire course and you just want to turn that pre-built course into a cohort-based course. So you've got a course about, for this example, I'll say we've got Cassie's course, and Cassie's course is all about micro teams managing. I'll show you here, surviving as an L&D micro team. So Cassie's got a really cool course that you can actually take for free. It's called Surviving as an L&D micro team, and we want to turn that into a cohort-based course. So instead of copy pasting everything, I'm actually just going to import that course or add these components that I want to add into this course. So then I don't have to, do work twice, save some time. So I will just highlight, I'm going to say, this is going to be module 1, this is going to be module 2 or week 1, and this is going to be week 3. And I will copy that. And easy as that, now all of these components have been added to my course. And this is also a really nice way, let's say you've got 5 team members and each team member is responsible for their own module to develop. You can then use this approach to pull everyone's different components into the course instead of having everyone work on the same course, which can be kind of confusing or can be a bit jarring, I guess. So here we can then replace all of these flows that we've imported, and we can just replace them with put them where we want them to be in the learning journey, and then just hide them again, and then show them when we want our learners to see them. So yeah, that's how you can quickly import your learning, import the activities. Can I get a quick check-in? I know I've been rambling a lot, and I see there's been a really cool questions and discussions in the chat, and I'd love to answer them. Yeah, I see you've already beaten me to it, and you are reacting. Awesome. Thank you very much. I appreciate your patience and enthusiasm, even though I'm not engaging with the chat as much. Next up, we're going to talk about scoring activities. So I'll actually, I'm going to delete this for now and just show you with the template. So you saw earlier that we have very specific requirements for completing the course. And there's no way that Tara and I, for 700 learners, are going to go through Excel spreadsheets and make sure that every participant has done what they need to do and qualify for a certificate. So we need to automate this. And I just want to find the certificate requirements. Here we go. So learners need to submit at least 2 of the 3 peer review assignments. They need to complete 2 peer review activities, and they need to have read at least 75% of the course content and then participate in 50% of the discussions. So these are all of the different conditions that we have before someone is allowed to get a certificate, which is where this cool things comes in at the end of the learning journey. So at the end of the learning journey, we've got the reflecting on your personal goals. And then here we have a bunch of activities where learners can check their progress to see how well they've done according to the conditions that we've told them that they need to pass. So we know that the learners need to participate in 50% of the discussions before they can complete this activity. So I'll show you how we can set that up. If you go to the settings for that activity, you can, this one just has a default because it can't be empty, but we can just add a new input and say that let's say in, okay, we'll just do the template for now. So you can even weight the scorings. So this activity, for example, is way more important than this one. So this one is going to be 2, and this one is going to be, well, let's say make it 5 points for this one versus 1 point for this one. So you can weight the different things. And then we can also add a condition to say that this activity will only be completed when we have reached a total score of 50%. So James has to do X amount of these, complete X amount of these activities before James can pass the course. The next one is just course content. And here we have a bunch of components, and we can add them here. And this one just indicates that has the person marked an activity as complete. Let me show you what that looks like. I realize that I haven't done that. So as James has this really cool mechanic that's driving him to do things, which is marking things as complete. So once he's read something and he's happy about the material, you can mark it as complete. So you can mark something as complete manually, or an activity will be marked as complete when a certain guideline or when a certain condition has been met. So once James has created a topic and commented on another topic, for example, or we just created a topic, James will complete this activity. So that's just going back to what it means. So I'll just go, I'm not going to go into the nuts and bolts of everything, but this one is also the submissions. You can track whether someone has submitted, or even go back to rubric scoring. So if someone has to have specific scores set out by a rubric from their peers or their instructors before they can pass. So if you want to include a lot more control over that, you can do it. We just have it set as they just have to complete, or they just have to submit something, and then they'll get a complete status automatically. And then the other one that we've got is that they have to review other people's work, at least 2 other people's work, or complete 2 peer review activities. And then once all of these conditions have been met, they will unlock the certificate activity. So you'll see here, we've got this section that says prerequisites. And the prerequisites for unlocking the certificate activity for James is that James needs to have passed or completed all of these scoring activities. So you can think of them as like little summaries of different types of activities, and you have to complete each summary. And once all of them are completed, then you will unlock the certificate activity, and then James can share his certificate online or move on. The other thing that we've added here is the course evaluation survey, just so that we can hear from James about how to make the course better before we continue. And then once all of these things are met, as I said, we can continue on James will get his certificate. I think that I've actually hit everything that I wanted to hit in this. Oh yeah, the final thing is the checklist. Sorry. The other thing that Tara and I have realized is that running a cohort-based course and having all of these different moving parts and submission deadlines and embed codes that need to be replaced because you're updating the Padlet world map activity, because there are so many different things that happen, it's so easy to forget to update something before you launch a course. And then if you do that, you end up, if you do it and there's an error in the course material, or if you forgot to update the deadlines, or you've got the wrong deadline, then there can be a lot of emails coming in with questions. So to mitigate that, Tara and I have this checklist activity. Again, you can see it's not visible to anyone. It's only visible to Tara and myself. And here are all the tasks that we do, but obviously you'll add your own tasks that you've got. But here, Tara and I will have the set up the world map activity, and I will have set it up, and then I'll replace this cross with a check mark, and then Tara will do a review of what I've done, and Tara will double check, and she will add another check mark, and then we know that we've done that, and we can will be comfortable to move on. So that is the or just a little checklist activity. You can choose to use it if you want, or you don't have to use it. We just find that it's a very nice way to reduce error, to add some quality quality metrics to the process. Cool. I think that's it for now. I'm not gonna, I realize we've got 5 minutes left, and I'd like to answer some of the questions. I had a whole other page of things that I'd like to share, but I'm not going to go into that because we only have 5 minutes. So Tara, are there any questions that have really stood out to you that you would like us to answer?
I think a general, there was a question in the beginning about sort of just how we release materials. And so if you could speak to that just really quickly.
Yeah.
And then I'll keep an eye on the chat for other questions.
Sure. Thank you. So at the moment, you'll see these little eye icons have a cross through them. That means that my participant, James, can't see the activities that are hidden. So James here is only able to see these activities. And to release these activities so that James can see them, all I have to do is go to the flow or the folder that contains all of the different activities, and I go to settings and I go uncheck that button that says hide. And I can do that for all of the week 1 material. So that's hide. And now James can see all of the week 1 material that we have just released. This is the simplest way to do it. There's another way to do it, but I'm not going to go into that because that's going to take more than 5 minutes to describe. Cool. Okay. Tara, is there another question that you think we should get to?
There's been a couple questions about like motivating learners and deadline extensions. And so I think it'd be great to discuss those a tiny bit. Probably the motivation question just in a small way, and then we can share the options for deadline extensions.
I'll tell you what, at the end of the course, I've got or at the end of this workshop, so when we hit the hour, I will go over 4 themes. So we'll probably like talk for another 10-15 minutes, but I'll go over 4 things that we've learned from doing this, like strategies or principles, I guess, for running a cohort-based course. And that's more about, it's not about the tips and tricks, it's about the actual strategic approach that we use. So if you'd like to stick around for the end, I can go over those specific things that we do, if that's fine. Maybe you can give me a thumbs up if you'd like to stick around and go over that later. I got a thumbs up. Awesome. Okay. Thanks, Cassie. Who else? Tara, are there any? Oh, you asked something else. It was a two-part question, and I've only answered the one part. Well, I didn't even answer the one part.
It's all good. I was thinking about, there's two ways to extend deadlines.
Oh, yes.
There's a way in the system, and then there's our sort of hacky way that we, use that we find we really like.
Here we've got, I'll just talk about so here's a submission activity. Oh, we are still James. We need to not be James anymore. So I am now going to go back to the course administrator view, and I would like to set a deadline for this activity. So the way we've set it is, the way you can set it is you go to opens at and deadline, and you hit that little check mark, and you can add a deadline. And this deadline is really nice because the participant will then get a notification or get frequent notifications about the upcoming deadline. And this is where you can set the deadline. So we'll want the deadline to be on the 9th of November. So that's one way of doing the deadlines. But what if James then is not able to meet the deadline? James sends me an email to say, William, I've run into some trouble. I'd really like a deadline extension. So then in that case, I can go into the summary view over here, and I can go to the activity that I know is due. I just want to find that activity quickly. Let me hide everything and then find the submission one. Here we go. And I want here, if I click on that bubble over here, or on this section, so this is the summary view, we can look at it in the progress section. I can click on this button over here, and I can change James's deadline, but it'll only change James's deadline. It won't change anyone else's deadline. And I can even, if I want James, if James has been very naughty and James hasn't done certain things, and I want him to catch up on some remedial work, I can even add extra activities that James needs to do before he can submit this activity. So there's a bunch of cool administrative features that we've got. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, that's perfect. We also sometimes will remove deadlines. So see the little trash can there, and sometimes we'll even remove deadlines just for everyone in the cohort. It's a little bit easier administrative wise on our end to remove the deadline completely, because for the sake of our course, we don't necessarily need our adult learners to complete our activities by deadlines. A lot of the times something comes up for a learner, we'll let them know it's okay to just take this course as a self-paced course, and they can continue working without having the barrier of deadlines. And so that's something that's worked really well for us.
Yeah.
Facilitation.
Thanks for sharing that, Tara.
Yeah. I think that's the only question from the chat.
Okay, cool. And we are on the hour. This has been, to be honest, I was telling Tara at the beginning, or we had a quick meeting before this started, and I told her I do not think we're going to get through this in an hour. And look at us. I have never been more proud of myself. Cool. So for those of you who would like to stick around, I will now go to part 2 of the presentation, which is more about the strategic approach that Tara and I and the entire facilitation team have adopted as we've been developing, or as we've been facilitating and iterating 9 cohorts of the instructional design principles, and 2 cohorts of the designing social learning experiences cohort, and 6 of Luke Hobson's working with subject matter experts. Sorry, my dog is barking in the background. So we've run through a few of them, and we've run into a lot of challenges, and we've figured out a bunch of ways to get over those challenges. Sorry, just give me a second. I need to go and shush my dog now.
While William shushes his dog, I'll just say that thank you so much for everyone for coming. If you need to head out because this is the top of the hour, totally understand, and thank you so much. We'll include this part in the recording also, so you can feel free to jump in and watch this part later. And we'll just stay on for a bit to share these strategic insights.
Yeah, cool. I'm actually gonna maybe as a an activity, or we can type into chat or something. I'll go over a few things that we've learned from all of these experiences. Maybe if you can, with your emojis or with your reactions, share your context. How many of you teach adult learners? Give me a thumbs up if you work with adult learners. So these are people who are no longer in school. I have a lot of thumbs up. Okay. Yeah, I'd say most people who are here are probably working with adult learners, and Tara and I also work with adult learners. Because we're working with adult learners, we have to acknowledge that they are adults. And there's this guy called Malcolm Knowles, who he didn't create the concept of andragogy, but he has 6 principles of adult learning that are very, very interesting and very useful to read. And it informs a lot of the strategies that we've adopted. So we've actually published a blog, or Cassie's actually authored a blog post about this recently, about adult learning principles. It's definitely worth a read. And if you've read that, you'll probably understand why we've made the decisions that we've made. Actually, I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I realize I don't need to show. I can show my face now. In terms of Knowles's principles, a few of them really stand out to us. The one is this idea of self-concept. Does anyone, would anyone like to share what Knowles means by the idea of self-concept? Steve, I see Steve also asked the question. Steve, I've got a really cool answer for you in a second. I'll actually leave. So because I've started on this train of thought, I'm going to keep going, and then at the end I'll get to Steve's thing. No, I actually wanted to create a whole other demo session about that, answering that question. The self-concept is the idea that you take ownership for your own learning decisions as an adult. We're no longer kids in school. We set our own journey. We are responsible for our own deadlines. If something happens, there isn't always going to be an adult, or if we don't meet a deadline, there isn't necessarily going to be an adult to tell us, or sometimes even lock us in a room and force us to do something. We acknowledge that we as adults have this idea of self-concept, self-determination. We are making our own decisions. The other thing is the orientation to learning. And that's the idea that adult learners are goal-oriented. They are often trying to solve their own problems. So that's why at the beginning of the session, you'll remember that I asked you, why are you here? And a lot of you probably had really compelling answers. And I'm pretty sure if I had to go back, I'm pretty sure the people who had very good reasons to be here are probably still in the session because they're finding it really relevant to a specific problem that they're trying to solve in their lives. So this goal orientation is a very big driver for adult learners. And then the final thing is motivation. Adult learners are very, very, there are 6, but I'm highlighting 3, sorry. Adult learners are very energized by internal motivation. External motivation is still really important, and there's still a lot of design decisions that we make to tap into external motivation, but we really, really need to find that internal motivator. And that's why at the beginning of the course, we have set your own goal activity, because we need the learners to reflect on why they're here, and that will hopefully help them to really, really think about what they need to do to stay here. They can think about their own barriers and how to overcome them, but you need someone to reflect on that big goal that focuses on them being here. And with this in mind, with the idea that learners are adult learners, I've created some punchy titles here. The first theme is the idea of facilitate, don't force, and that's the idea of giving participants breathing room. they need some freedom to make their own decisions. You need to tap into that self-concept, that self-determination. Give them options. So don't tell them to complete every single discussion. Tell them they can complete only 50% of the discussions, and they can choose which ones they want to do. Another thing that I've also realized in the instructional design principles course is a lot of people they join and they only do the bits that they think are really interesting for themselves, and then they leave. They don't want the certificate. They don't want to complete the course. They're there to solve a very specific problem, and once that problem has been solved, then they leave. And I have absolutely no problem with that. I think it's very, very interesting. And I think their brief contributions can also add a lot of value to the experience. And we're still learning a lot about accommodating adult learners and designing that learning journey to really maximize this idea of helping people reach their own goals. Very soon, I'm very excited about this, we are going to be able to really tap into this idea of adaptive learning. So we'll soon be able to create all kinds of really cool, like if-then conditions in the learning journey. So if James passes this quiz, then James will automatically skip a bunch of components and only have to do X, Y, Z. So keep in touch. That's going to be very cool. So the first thing is facilitate, don't force. Along those lines, we also have to acknowledge that adult learners have adult challenges. They have kids at home. They can only spend time learning at certain times of the day when their kids are sleeping, or maybe when they're done with work. So what the philosophy we've adopted, keeping this in mind, is that all of our speed networking sessions and all of our workshops are all optional. So you don't have to be in any of the live sessions to be able to understand what's going on, or to really follow in the learning journey. So to do that, the speed networking sessions I'll maybe talk briefly about it, but speed networking session is a Zoom workshop where we group people into a bunch of small groups of people, and then they get to meet them, and then we shuffle it around, and they get to meet a bunch of people in the cohort, and it's a really nice way to inject energy into the course. But some people really like it. Some people absolutely hate the idea of meeting strangers, and we have to acknowledge that in the course design. So we don't force anyone to be there, but we do want those people who really get energized by those connections. We want them to be able to benefit from it. The other thing that we do to still give people an opportunity to catch up is we create watch parties. So I'll share my screen again to show you what that looks like. Share. So a watch party is, here I've got a workshop. So learners do a pre-quiz, and then they do the workshop, and then after they've gone to the workshop, they join a workshop watch party, and that is just a video recording, but the video recording has a discussion at the end, so that they can still ask questions and participate and tap into a bit of that cohort energy, even though they weren't at the live session. So that is the first principle of facilitate, don't force. Just guide, but don't make anyone, or don't try to force anyone to do anything. The next principle is what I call design for the back row. And if you think about back in school, I was the back row student, the one who sits at the back of the class, engage. You don't really engage. You just maybe sneakily sit and watch TikTok videos on your phone, and you don't really want to be there, but you have to be there. When we create the course, we try as much as possible to create the course so that participant who is in the back row has the best chance of still completing the course. And what that means is you don't have to be in any of the live workshops to be able to pass the course. There are all these other different ways that you can still learn the same stuff, but on your own terms. So that's the idea of designing for the back row. The next one is leverage experience. And that is acknowledging that adult learners, and there's even a principle for that, prior experience, adult learners have a lot to bring to the table. And we have to acknowledge that they know a lot, and that we really, really can tap into that to make things valuable for everyone. And to do that, we have a bunch of really cool activities, like the Padlet activity that I showed earlier, discussions activities. Eduflow has a bunch of has a poll activity that also makes it easy to tap into what am I saying? Into the collective experience. Wordle. If you look at the integrations page that we have on Eduflow, a lot of those are really, really great wiki-ish type tools that are ways of resource sharing, but where everyone in the cohort can share resources. And then the final thing, this is not the final, but this is the last thing that I'll talk about, is to maximize the value of peer feedback. And again, that taps into this idea that people are learning together, and all of them have really awesome things to bring to the table. And peer feedback is the reason why instructional design principles and why designing social learning experiences, which are the two cohort-based courses that we have, they're the reason why they work. Or let's say why they work so well, why everyone is, to some extent, it's not perfect, I definitely acknowledge that, but they work really well because we can still create that loop of submitting something that you put a lot of thought and energy into it, and still getting feedback on that. If you think about that versus a LinkedIn learning course where you might work on something and put a lot of thought into it, but there's no acknowledgement, there's no accountability, or there's no loop to give you anything in return for all the work you've put in, right? So that's why feedback, or peer feedback, has been very useful. So I think the biggest cohort that we've run with Tara and myself as head facilitators, running all of the administration, I think is 1,000 people in a cohort, and we managed to pretty smoothly get that cohort running really well. And it's all thanks to the peer feedback activity. And I'll show you what it looks like on Eduflow. I'll share my screen again. Here we go. I'm also really impressed that so many of you are still here. Cool. Okay, sharing my screen. Can you see my screen? I just want to double check in the chat. Tara, am I sharing the right one?
Yes.
Cool. Okay, thank you. So this is what a peer review loop looks like. So as James, so let's pretend to be James, actually. Let's give you James's perspective. Log in as. So James, over here, James has done all the work in this module, and James is ready to submit the first activity. So James reads all the instructions and submits the work. And this is not going to work really well because there aren't any other people who have submitted. But next up, James reads a bit about feedback. And then David, who is Eduflow CEO, made this cool video about 4 pillars of effective feedback. And then, sorry, ooh, that's very rude. James then does or can share his experiences of peer of feedback. So we've got a little discussion prompt here, and we call this process of getting someone to think about feedback before doing feedback, we call that feedback onboarding, because feedback is a very, very personal, and it's very valuable, but it gets botched often, and that's why people have such negative perceptions of it. And this onboarding process is really important because it helps us to set a few standards and rules about what makes good feedback and how you should give good feedback. So when James does review, so James will have completed the discussion, and then James can do a review submissions, but there aren't any other submissions, so James can't do it. But when James reviews, the activity actually includes another cool mechanic The mechanic is modeling, some Bandura. So we model what good feedback looks like in the feedback process. So when we set up an activity, we can also create a feedback rubric. So these rubrics are, it's not, this one doesn't have it. I copied the wrong one. Sorry. Okay, hold on. Let me do this quickly. Okay, so on the instructional design principles course, we've got it. We've got this idea of feedback modeling. Let me just grab it over here. Okay, review work done by your peers. Then you can see what the rubric looks like. Copy. Okay, so as an instructor or as a learner, you will be asked, be asked a bunch of questions according to this rubric. And the rubric has a question, but it also has, here's an example of what good feedback looks like for this type of question. All of these things together work quite well to do this onboarding, to model what something good looks like and to create a level of expectation. I'll emphasize again that it's not perfect. It doesn't mean that everyone has an excellent feedback experience, but it maximizes the likelihood that we will have better feedback experience. And then the final mechanic that we have is that once you've reviewed feedback, you also reflect on your own feedback. And then you can also reflect on the feedback that, or reflect on the reflections that people have made because of the feedback you've given them. So I think I've got a GIF of what that looks like in over here. So as a learner, you can go into review the submission, and then you can click on the reflection button over there, and then you can actually read how I can read how my feedback has impacted the life of the anonymous participant who I've given it to. And I think that's a really powerful extra loop to show that, you know, you're having an impact on another human, and the feedback on the feedback allows you to improve another skill that maybe you didn't even set out to improve from the beginning. Yeah, that was the last kind of like big thing that I wanted to share as a bunch of principles. And yeah, I guess I did it for the recording. Now we can maybe talk about any other questions that some of you amazing people who are still here have.
And if anyone has questions, they can drop them in the chat, or you can also
actually, yeah, I'm now allowing anyone to unmute themselves. I think we are a small enough group too. So if you have a question, you can unmute. That participant who asked about the custom, the other way to run the course, are they still here?
The question about if cohorts can overlap.
Yes.
That was Steve.
Steve's still here.
Yeah.
Cool. Unless anyone else, because this is going to take like 5 minutes to explain. So if anyone else has any questions about before I go into this very technical thing, if you have any questions, you can ask them quickly and then I'll try to answer them. Otherwise, I'm going to dig into Steve's question. Okay, so Steve, brace yourself. This is going to get, it's not going to get complicated. It's just going to get, let's say, interesting. So, and actually, I haven't even tried doing this yet, but theoretically, it should work. I'll have to make this work, I'll have to introduce you to this idea of tags. So it's also a really, really cool, it's one of Eduflow's coolest features. And I know I keep talking, it's very terrible for me as someone who works at Eduflow to promote it so shamelessly, but it is like when I first learned about tags, I was completely blown away. So a tag is it's kind of like I guess like a hashtag or a label that you can put on a learner, and based on the label that the learner has, you can customize the experience to some extent. So we can create a selected tag activity on Eduflow, and we can ask them to click a tag, and then they'll self-assign a tag, or as administrators, we can give a tag to specific learners. So I will create another learner, a fake learner, just to show you. Invite learners, and I'm going to call this one Sarah, and Sarah at, okay, and Sarah is another fake email address. So we have James here and we have Sarah here, and I'm going to tag James. I'm going to create a new tag for James, and I'm going to call this tag cohort1. Create, and then I'm going to create another tag here and call this one cohort2. Yeah, this is where it gets really cool. Now I can actually create a unique journey for James and Sarah. So James and Sarah can have, they can be in the same course, but they can have a completely different experience. And I'll show you that to you here, just using a few examples. So let's say I want, I don't think you can do, oh yeah, I can. So let's say I want James, who is in cohort 1, to have access to module 1. So this is module 1, the fishing rod module. So I want James so I want James to be able to access this course material, but I don't want Sarah to access this course material. But I want them to be on the same course, because let's say this is an employee onboarding program, and they've got a discussion, an introduction discussion, and I don't want them to lose out on all the other introductions that have been added before. So in that case, I won't create a new course. I'll actually use the same one over and over and over again. So I want James, I'll only give access to this flow to learners who are tagged as cohort 1. And I'll do that to these 3 settings, subset of learners, using tags, and at least one of, and cohort 1. Great. But let's just stick, no, we should do all 3 of them. Settings, okay. Using tags, and add tag, and it's cohort 1. Yeah. So yeah, you can actually see that 1 out of the 2 learners have access to this content. So let's see what that looks like from the perspective of, so let's start with Sarah. Sarah's in cohort 2. So Sarah doesn't have the cohort 1 tag. So I can now go in as login as, and I can see what Sarah sees. Sarah doesn't see, oh, Sarah, I forgot to tag this activity, but Sarah can't see all of module 1. So what I need to do, I'll show you now how James can see everything. When I log in as James, login as, and James can see the whole of module 1. So if I wanted to, I could do it this way. I can give access to cohort 1 by tagging. The other way that I can do it is I can also say, add a tag here to week 1 that says live or something. And then in the participants section, I can just tag the learner as live, and then they can see cohort 1. So I can, for example, if I want Sarah to have access now, I'll just tag Sarah as cohort 1 at this time. And now Sarah will have access to, will be able to see module 1 as well. So that's how you can have multiple learners doing the same learning journey, but at a different pace. The only challenge there would be submission deadlines, I guess, but there's probably ways to work around that. It's a design challenge, but I don't think it's impossible. There's probably a way to do it. You could probably even like create a new copy of the submission, and then that submission is only available to cohort 1, and then the other one is only available to cohort 2, and then you can, yeah. Rhonda, thank you for that. I hope I answered your question, Steve. Do you have any? You're welcome to unmute to ask a follow-up question.
Yeah, definitely answered my question. I just don't feel any shame in shamelessly plugging Eduflow. It seems to be so versatile, and yeah, I can't wait to kind of dig my heels in a bit more.
Cool. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I realized that we haven't been. I've been like interacting with Eduflow every day for the last year and a half, and I've learned a few tricks along the way, and I realized that I haven't been sharing them. So it's really nice to actually show how powerful it is. And when I started, we didn't even have the embed activity yet. So in a year and a half, the amount of features that we've added, it just is mind blowing. Like it's not like the platform is unrecognizable. The user experience is still as amazing as it was, but just the amount of extra stuff you can do as someone who facilitates learning experiences is amazing. And to kind of hear that feedback is very awesome. So thank you. Cool. And we've got 4 more people in this session. Are there any final questions before we wrap it up? Cool. Tara, thank you so much for helping out. I really appreciate it. And then thank you everyone else for sticking around for so long. It was a really great time. Cheers.
Have a great day. Bye.